And now we're gonna welcome somebody who's never come to our special here at the State of Bitcoin Markets, and we're gonna welcome Robin. Everybody knows Robin. It's such a pleasure to have you here. Robin, how are you? Thank you for coming. Very nice to see you on our special weekly special. So, how's everything going, Robin, for you? And by the way, where are you calling from?
I'm coming from Vienna. I hope you guys can hear me well.
Yeah, we can.
Really cool to be here and see you, Boria and Luca. And you guys are crazy. Like the one guest goes out and the next one comes in. Like you just like keep going for like how long are you having this energy for?
Yeah, 2 hours, man. And then we have
That's
meetings
crazy.
and work and so and then we're in the office. We continue working. Eh? This is non-stop, man.
That's awesome. I love that energy. Really cool. So like I'm doing really good. I take usually some break in between guests. So I hope we have the good energy from you guys also.
Yeah, we never stop. We never stop. Che. So Robin, also who doesn't stop is Bitcoin, man. What is going on? What is your thoughts on we were at 100K 3 weeks ago and now we're sitting at $67,800?
I think those are the times, like there's a multiple thoughts in my head. I think there's three major thoughts that I see in here. First of all, I've never in the history that I've been in Bitcoin seen such a bad sentiment while the price is still so high. We shouldn't forget that just like 5-6 years ago, we were under 10K and now we're over 70, we're around 70K, I don't know, 69 or something like that. And so it's not like we crashed down to like 5K, 10K or anything crazy like that. We had in 2022 the crash from what was it, 69K to 16K. This really felt like either we're going to zero or we are going back up. And it felt like that test of who's willing to die on this hill, who's willing to actually understand Bitcoin and go for the long haul. So it's like if you are not in it for the dump, you don't deserve the bumps. That's always how you can phrase it. And I've never seen such a bad sentiment, even in the 16K area when we went in the 2022 from 69 to 16K. It was never that bad. Maybe it's because I see now more because I have the podcast, I have the Twitter channel, so I see more sentiments. I see it more in person, not in person, but like on my person also. A lot of people reach out, a lot of people write comments. I've never seen so many people capitulate. And we at 70K. It's crazy. Like we are not a small asset. We haven't gone bust. Everything looks so good, and people are extremely almost crying about what's going on in Bitcoin. And why? Like it's a 40%, 50% crash from the all-time high. We have seen 70% crashes. We have seen 80% crashes. We've seen 90% crashes. I think it can get a lot worse. I think like 30K would be like the absolute low point that I think we could get. I have a hard time seeing Bitcoin going under the 30K, but we can definitely go lower than the 69K. So people should not be surprised if we go lower than that. And Bitcoin, we have to remember that Bitcoin is something very different to anything else out there. Like period. We have nothing that we can compare it towards. Sometimes it behaves like gold because people think like, oh, it's gold. Sometimes it behaves like technology, speculative asset or stock because some people think it is like that. But the truth is it's none of those things and all of those things. It has some aspects of a tech stock. It has some aspects of gold. It has some aspects of other things. And so we've never had a global digital scarce asset that is available 24/7 and people have their own narratives. There's this meme where there's a big elephant and people say, oh, like it's that, but then in the end of the day it's an elephant, not like their own small parts of the elephant. So all that combined, I think Bitcoin does what Bitcoin always does. It surprises people, and people keep getting surprised by the price action of Bitcoin. But overall, I think the fundamentals have never looked stronger. We never have been having such a strong Bitcoin community and ecosystem while being in a crash. And yeah, so it's basically the individual decision. If you believe now in Bitcoin, if you see the fundamentals, then you should hold on and stack more. This is the time where, if you have an emergency fund, if you have like cash buffers, if you have something like not all in, you're probably in a very good position because you are able to buy the dip. Other people might not be able to do that, and so yeah, just keep on going with that. And if you have doubts, if you don't think like Bitcoin can make it, it's probably a sign that you have to study more. It's probably a sign that you have to look deeper in what Bitcoin actually is and what Bitcoin actually can change in human civilization.
100%. Robin, a question in this sense. How are you seeing the world? Because Bitcoin is within a context, right? What is your analysis of what is going on in the world right now? I mean, like, we have wars. Like, right now we're having like US Iran tensions again. We're having everything like with AI, OpenClaw. Like, some people are saying that AGI is already here. Everything like the AI boom is taking us to like this cheap frenzy thing. I mean, like, it's everything is like I believe that the world is choppy, but I would love to listen to your opinion, because again, we live in a context, and Bitcoin is doesn't live alone. Like, it's in the middle of plenty of things. So what is your understanding of the world right now and all the news and stories that we're seeing?
I try to not listen too much to the news. I try to not listen too much to noise and look from. I'm currently developing this kind of sense of to look at, if you look at something, is it actually something sustainable in the future, or is it noise? Is there like a framework we can develop to see if something is just a short-term FUD? Is it just a short-term blip in history, or is it something sustainable? And I'm actually currently developing that, or like currently looking at that, and it's really interesting. I'm seeing almost like because there's certain types of evolutions in the history. Some are sustainable and some are not. If you think about the printing press, it was very sustainable. It was something that really changed the history. But then if you look at shitcoins, for example, you're like, okay, like maybe they are not as sustainable. They come and go. Or if you look at maybe Blu-ray is an interesting example, because people said, oh, that's the future, and we will all have the Blu-ray discs. And now, like, most people don't even know what the Blu-ray disc is anymore. Like, some people might remember. And so there are systems and there are innovations that actually take it for the long haul and actually do something foundational to our world. And then there's just noise. And I think we live in a world where noise is amplified because we hear all the noise of all the world. If you look back in like 100 years ago, we didn't hear what the noise was in Austria, what the noise was in Australia, what was the noise in South Korea. We only heard the noise from our local kind of environment, and now we hear the noise from everywhere. We hear about all the wars, we hear about all the things that are going on, and then we think the world is gone crazy. But I don't think the world is that crazy, actually. Might be an unpopular stance, but I think it's quite sane if you think about the world in its ends. But the lens of the world might be looking crazy because we are so amplified in all the things that we are seeing. And so, coming back to the framework, I try to look at it. Is there some criteria to judge? Is this long-term sustainable, and what will be happening? And so, one example you brought up is war. I think war is an interesting one because we always have conflicts, and then when we look at the things, okay, what no matter what Bitcoin does, no matter what AI does, no matter what the different technologies brings, what are the things that will always be there? Conflicts between human beings. Like I'm very certain that even 100 years, even in 2000 years, there will be two people fighting about something. I don't think this will go away. But maybe if we take away the ability to print money to infinity and then pay back over the next 100, 200 years, over generations, maybe wars are shorter and less violent because dictators no longer have the option to print indefinitely money. Like that might be true, but there will always be conflicts. And I think then we can judge of like, what is the long-term implication of that and what is the short-term implication of that. And so I'm trying to develop a kind of what is the legacy lens on something and what is kind of the transition or the horizon lens on something. If you look at Bitcoin from the legacy lens, you see, oh, it's too volatile, so it cannot work. If you look at Bitcoin, oh, like it's not scalable enough. Lightning is not working. All of that. So we kind of look at Bitcoin. It's not currently working, but we are just looking at it too early. We're looking at it from the wrong perspective. Then if you look from the transition space, it's like, yeah, it might have some future. But yeah, that was my thoughts. I don't have a good answer for that because I just don't follow news too much, and I try to stay out of the noise.
And how are you seeing everything regarding AI? Because something that we've been wanting to, like, we've been talking also internally, and we'd love to know your thoughts, is like the intersection between Bitcoin and AI, and why is Bitcoin important in this sense? Because, well, Bitcoin is the only unmutable, like, unstoppable currency in the entire planet. Like, nobody can stop a Bitcoin transaction. Tether can freeze USDT, Circle can freeze USDC, and so on, but nobody can do anything with Bitcoin. So how do you see, like, do you see a future where all of what we're seeing about agents and so on are like an intersection with Bitcoin?
Yeah, 100%. I think this is an interesting one actually with AI and Bitcoin, because if you look at what Bitcoin is, it's getting away from the trust. So we no longer have to trust that a transaction has actually been made. If you have the legacy system, you can send some euros or to another bank account, and if the other bank account says no, it didn't come to me, like, how can you prove that it didn't come to him? How can you see if it actually didn't went there? How can the other person say like, oh, but I sent it, here's the receipt? Yeah, but it's just a receipt, like it's a piece of paper. you can fake that piece of paper. You cannot verify this piece of paper. With Bitcoin, it's different, because if you give me an address and I send Bitcoin to this address, I can verify, see, here's a transaction ID, I've sent Bitcoin to this address. Like everyone can just verify it on his own with his own node, and can just see on the blockchain it's actually there. And this is an interesting one if we live in a world where AI is increasingly getting better in copying and faking things. For example, we got this Will Smith example of eating spaghetti. It's still very clear that it's AI. Like if you still see it, like it's still AI. But 2 years ago, it was very clear. It was very horrible. 3 years ago, it was like very, very horrible. Now it gets to be a point where it's like actually quite good. Like you almost think like Will Smith actually might eating spaghetti. I think in 5 years it's game over. Like you have no clue if it's the real Will Smith or not. Probably a lot sooner, but I say 5 years because a conservative guesstimate. I think probably even like in 1-2 years. But 5 years, 100%, you have a real Will Smith eating spaghetti and an AI Will Smith eating spaghetti. You have no clue who's the real one and who's the AI one. So what is the value of something that you cannot manipulate? Like what is the value of the only ledger in the world that you can trust because you don't have to trust it, you can verify it? I think it's something that we we can't even comprehend at this point how valuable this is, just to have something digitally that we can actually trust, because we're just starting to see what this means. Even if you see now news on Twitter, it's really hard for me also. You see news, and then you're like, is that true? Is that AI? Is that an old video? Is it kind of altered? And then usually there's the community notes, but how do I know that the community notes knows it? Like, like I also have to trust then the people that got into the community notes, that they researched the right thing and they provided the right documents. So it's not a perfect system. It's better than nothing. So the only thing that we can really trust in an AI world is Bitcoin. And one small anecdote to that, I recently watched, or recently, I think like 2-3 months ago, an episode of the Diary of a CEO, of an AI expert. He was not a Bitcoin at all. I don't think so. I've never seen him in Bitcoin speaking. But then he asked, like I think an hour into the episode, Stephen asked him, "Oh, what do you think about 2035, 2045? What should people 100% do or have for that area for AI?" And he just said Bitcoin, and I was like, "That's crazy. Why?" And I was researching, like he's not a known Bitcoin or anything like that, but he said this is the only thing that you cannot fake, and that's so valuable in an AI world. So people like to think about AI and Bitcoin connection is like AI agents paying each other with Bitcoin, and 100% it will happen the same way as we will all each other pay us with Bitcoin. But the more interesting question for me is how important or how valuable will be an immutable ledger that you cannot fake. You can verify yourself with like a $300 note yourself at home, and you can trust that thing. Like that's invaluable, and you absolutely need it in an AI world.
Robin, I have a question there, talking about trends and where, Bitcoin is going and everything. What do you think about like Bitcoin entering the traditional financial markets as it is, with the Treasury companies and everything in the capital markets, like what are your thoughts on there? Where do you think like Bitcoin is will be spreading the most, or where would the biggest growth come, and a little bit of the whole ecosystem? What are your thoughts there?
It's really interesting because I'm studying strategy very hard these days, because I was not interested in Bitcoin Treasury companies up until like November, I think. They crashed so hard that I got interested. If something is crashing really hard from a high, it usually is something interesting. I also started studying Bitcoin when it crashed in 2020 so hard, I think up until 3,000 or something like that, from the previous high of like 17 or 18,000. I think there are first of all, like TradFi is very like there are different spaces in Bitcoin and TradFi. There's the ETF that came into 2024 into the market. Then there are the Bitcoin Treasury companies that came into the market. Then there are just the pension funds and other institutions that adopt Bitcoin. So there's the TradFi space connected with Bitcoin is already very diverse at this point. So it depends on what kind of segment you mean. I would just say the ETFs, I think, fundamentally changed how Bitcoin is working long term, because it allows a lot of institutional money. It also allows a lot of the pension funds and institutions to come in, and they act differently than the retail crowd. The retail crowd is behaving very different to institutions. Institutions usually have a percentage target that they want to reach. They're like, okay, we have 95% of our portfolio is like divided like that, and then there's like 5% is Bitcoin. And if Bitcoin goes to 4%, they buy more. If Bitcoin goes to 6%, they're selling. And so we probably will see a very dampened price in the future, up until if we hit some hyperinflationary situation. But it definitely has a more dampened price segment. So if like the question would be interesting, how hard Bitcoin would drop right now if we wouldn't have ETFs. I think we could have already been way lower because a lot of the ETFs are like keep buying and they trying to get up to the percentages again because they have a long-term goal, they have a long-term execution plan. The same way probably it will change the market system once we go up, once we cross like 200,000, 250,000, there will be automatic triggers in there of big money just selling some Bitcoin to rebuy other things. This is one thought that I have, that TradFi is just a different game, and this game is now coming to Bitcoin, and it's normal, it's good, it's organic. People say, oh, it's paper Bitcoin. Bitcoin will never go up as high again, ever again. I don't believe that. It's just that Bitcoin is now different than it was before. Now, to the treasury companies, I find this extremely interesting. I always dismissed it because I was like, why should I own a treasury company when I can just own Bitcoin? Why should I buy an IOU if I can just buy the real thing that the IOU also wants to buy? There are now 3 different kinds of treasury companies. I think there's Strategy. I would put Strategy in their own category. They have such a huge first mover advantage. They are like Google, they are like Facebook, they are like Bitcoin. they have just this network effect where they can bring a stretch on the market, and it's the most trusted instrument. Other treasury companies can do the same thing and might be successful because of some jurisdictional arbitrage, but Stretch will most likely be the #1 product for that kind of instrument in the market, just because they have over 700,000 Bitcoin and they keep on buying more. So they just have a huge network effect. They have just a huge first mover advantage. And for me, Strategy became interesting once they launched Stretch. Before that, it was like, it's an interesting thing. But what are they doing with the Bitcoin? What can they really provide? Providing for the world and savings account with 11.25 or something, whatever the percentage currently is very interesting, because I just tell you 2 stories. When I told this to my girlfriend and to my sister, both said immediately, oh, how can I invest? Like immediately. That usually when you tell people about Bitcoin, they're like, what is that? Like they have like a thing like that. Oh, but wait, a savings account where I just get 11%? Oh, okay, I have it in my bank account. I also have a savings account. I get 2%. It's just a no-brainer. And I would give Stretch another 5 years, or like 3 to 5 years, because that kind of instrument needs trust. The only question that people really have in their mind if they think about Stretch is, can I trust it or not? That's the only question. If they trust it, they will buy it. Every person on planet Earth has a use case for buying Stretch, because you should have cash, and having cash in an instrument like Stretch, where you can just get 11% on it, it's just like amazing. Like I think there's nothing else that can compete with that. I mean Bitcoin, but Bitcoin has the volatility of the purchasing power, so it cannot compete with that. It's a different kind of animal, and so. It will, I think, really prosper within the next like 3 to 5 years. Like coming back 5 years and seeing what Stretch is, we will all say like, oh, like it was a no-brainer. Like obviously, like it has huge volume and everyone wants it. So this is about the first category of like treasury companies. It's just Strategy. I think they are in a league of their own. The next category is just companies that try to copy strategy, and they might be successful because they are in a unique position. For me, MetaPlanet comes in mind. With Japan, they have a very unique position. They might be successful. I haven't studied them closely. There are other ones that try to do similar things where they don't have a huge operating company or like almost none, and they're trying to do the same thing. I think Strive is also one that keeps coming up. They are, I'm still unsure if they have a future or not. They probably have, but I'm more cautious with them just because I haven't really researched them deeply, and I don't want to say that they will be absolutely crazy or absolutely bad. I just think they have it a lot harder long term than strategy, because strategy has that major first mover advantage. And then there's the third kind of category of treasury companies. It's just companies that are profitable and like to save in Bitcoin. I mean, I don't have a huge business, but like my small podcast business is that kind of treasury company. I would not call myself a treasury company. I'm just a small Austrian company that buys Bitcoin. That's literally it. And from that, and I think every single company will be, if you define a treasury company like that, every single company will be a treasury company. If you are a profitable company and you have a cash reserve, why wouldn't you buy Bitcoin with that? It's really, really simple. Like, why wouldn't you go ahead and say, yeah, let's put 5%, 10%, 50%, 80% in Bitcoin. And so that's how I look at it. There's like those three kind of treasury companies. And if you don't have any jurisdictional or unique advantage and you're trying the strategy protocol without having a profitable operating business, I think you're screwed. I think you need some kind of jurisdictional unique advantage to your treasury company, or you need a profitable operating business. Other than that, I don't see there is any good with that. I don't think they will be long-term sustainable, but I might be wrong. I would never short a stock because it's just too dangerous. Treasury strategy again is different. I think they could lose tomorrow their operating business and they will still be fine. I base all my analysis on strategy outside of the operating business. It's nice that they have it, but I don't think it's at that point significant to the business.
Amazing for the insight, Robin. And as a final question for you, as we get to the last part of this segment, what do you think is the future of Bitcoin treasury companies in Bitcoin? Like, what role do you think Bitcoin treasury companies will play?
I think, as I said, there's those three ones. I personally believe, and I'm not 100% sure it will play out like that, but I personally believe there will be almost like Bitcoin banks, almost like Bitcoin's central banks, like a strategy that provide financial services. Because yes, Stretch is a preferred stock, but it's also almost a financial service that they're doing, stripping away the volatility and giving them a savings account with 11% yield. This will be absolutely a role that treasury companies can play in a Bitcoin world. The question is this a transitional play, or is it a long-term play where they also have a sustainability in 300, 400, 500 years? It's very hard to say how it will end up in 300, 400, 500 years. But I'm very sure that they will be around the next 100, 200 years because they have a very unique perspective in that. Outside of that, I think treasury companies are just companies. That's, I think, that's the main use case. That's the main takeaway. Bitcoin is money at the end of the day. I think we kind of see we try to like analyze what currently is going on and think like, how can this work in the future? But if you think about it first principles and think about what is actually going on with Bitcoin, It's just money at the end of the day, long term. It has a long way to go there. And so, yes, company will use it, institutions will use it, ETFs will use it, your grandma will use it, your son will use it. Every single person will use Bitcoin in some capacity. Some will not touch it on the main layer on chain in self custody. Some might only touch it in a stretch product. Some might only buy it on an ETF. Some might only interact with it on Lightning. Some want it in self-custody themselves and do it all themselves. And so some might have it in a hot wallet that's integrated in your iPhone and has a 2 out of 3 multisig with your Apple Watch, with your iPad, and with your iPhone, and can spend that in any supermarket, and it's super secure. It's like we are where the internet was in 1995. In 1995, and we are trying to predict what's going to happen in the internet in 2026. It's like impossible. I just know there's a lot of different ways Bitcoin will scale. And think about 1995, the TCP/IP protocol, and then see what the TCP/IP protocol allowed for flourishing over the next like 30 years, where we are right now. And I think this is always kind of hard to predict how huge something will change the world. And I think we all will be surprised how huge the impact of Bitcoin will be.
Amazing. No, Robin, thank you so much for the commentary, for the input, and I hope to see you more here in our special, not the other ones in RoxomTV, but in ours. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It was really cool. I loved the short session.
It's a pleasure. Yeah, this is in and out. It's like 15-20 minutes, and we continue. So thank you, Robin, and again, hope to see you again in our show soon. And thank you so much for the comments. And we all hope that Bitcoin gives us more presence in the future, more good stuff. So thank you.
100%. Thank you so much.
Robin,
Chat
thank you
later.
very much.
All right, guys. So this was Robin Seyr, who was here for the first time ever in RoxomTV. We're so happy that he could join us. He's many of you, like, he's very famous. All of you know him. I don't need to explain who Robin is, but it was very interesting to listen to him on our show, because again, this was the first time that he was here.